Coming up on First at 4, police are searching for 2 inmates after they escaped from a Lexington corrections facility. And preparations are underway for new businesses in the mountains. We'll have the details on what this could look like.
And unseasonably warm conditions are still in the forecast. Details in a few minutes.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is continuing to investigate an inmate's death at the Campbell County, Tennessee jail. This is the 4th inmate death since April. Authorities say 52-year-old Mark Garner was reported dead Sunday morning. His body has been sent for an autopsy. So far, the TBI is not releasing a cause of death. The search continues for 2 inmates that escaped from the Blackburn Correctional Complex in Lexington. Troopers say Adam Ball and Bradley Cornwell are believed to have escaped the facility in a water truck. Ball is 38 years old, Cornwell is 40. The Scott County Sheriff's Office says Ball and Cornwell were last seen at Casey's gas station on Ironworks Pike on Sunday. They add if anyone sees Ball or Cornwell, do not approach them, just call 911. A shooting near the University of Kentucky campus early Sunday morning is under investigation. Maggie Rickerby spoke to the UK Police Department about staying safe during these scary incidents.
The shooting happened at this off-campus Raising Cane's restaurant at around 1 a.m. on Sunday. UKPD tells us that no one was injured. The school's alert system sent around an alert to notify students and the community. Although everyone was okay this time, UKPD is taking action to create a safer community. UKPD Chief Joe Monroe says there will be an increased police presence in cars and on bikes in the area where the shooting happened. He says if anyone finds themselves in a dangerous position, they should either run, hide, or fight as a last resort. He also says not to be afraid to call for help. But his biggest safety tip?
Be aware of your surroundings and look at what's going on around you. Pay attention. Get out of your phone, because a lot of time people are either got their earbuds in or they're walking around with their phones and not paying attention.
Monroe says UKPD is currently reviewing hours of footage on campus to help Lexington police with the ongoing investigation. In Lexington, Maggie Rickerby, WKYT.
Plans are in place to bring businesses to 2 potential properties near Prestonsburg. WYMT's Buddy Forbes spoke to Floyd County officials as those preparations continue.
The Floyd County Fiscal Court is hoping to bring economic development to the mountains using grant funding and 2 vacant sites here in the county. With an AMLR grant awarded last month for the development of a property the county owns on US 23 near Prestonsburg, and $5 million in state funding awarded last week for the acquisition and development of the former Thunder Ridge property, County Judge Executive Robbie Williams says the groundwork for growth can begin soon, saying the time to prepare is now.
We've had probably more inquiries in the last 12 to 18 months on businesses locating in our region, in that Prestonsburg area. We've had more interest in the last 12 to 18 months than we have in the last 5 or 6 years since I've been in office.
Those involved say both of these properties are about making sure the county is ready when the businesses come and making sure the burden does not fall on the taxpayer. In Floyd County, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
Williams says there are different visions for each site. Hear those details coming up at 6.
Well, we had a mixture of sun and clouds today, and now the wind is starting to pick up, especially across the western portion of the WYMT viewing area. Take a look at the latest wind gusts. You can see they're around 20 to 25 miles per hour between London and Lexington. Jackson is seeing a wind gust of 20 miles an hour, and then Logan seeing a wind gust around 16 miles an hour. Now, live pinpoint Doppler radar. All is quiet for tonight. All is quiet for the most part tomorrow. It's when we get into the evening and overnight hours and even into the day on Wednesday that rain chances will start to pick up. So when you wake up in the morning, we'll see a little bit of a breeze across the area, but overnight lows will be in the upper 50s and low 60s. Simply put, a beautiful evening, a beautiful November evening, I should say, is in store. Now, coming up in the first alert forecast, we're going to talk about unseasonably warm temperatures. We're going to talk about much needed rain chances because we really need them. But the question is, how long is this nice weather going to last? I'll have that answer coming up in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are both on a swing state blitz in these final few hours before Election Day. Trump, Harris, and their running mates are set for 24 events in all 7 swing states before the polls close. Here's what spokespeople from each campaign said about their candidates' closing message.
We think it's a very obvious contrast and an easy choice. And our final message, our closing message, boils down to this succinctly. Kamala Harris broke it. Donald Trump will fix it.
People are making up their minds in the closing days of the race, and our message is that Vice President Harris wants to turn the page on the chaos and division of Donald Trump and take the country into a new way forward.
The campaign trail ends in Pennsylvania with Trump and Harris both planning large rallies there later tonight. Tomorrow's election is shaping up to be one of the most tightly contested presidential contests of all time. WYMT Washington Bureau correspondent Brendan Cullerton tells us what to expect when the polls close.
National polls remain deadlocked between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, but more importantly, both candidates are polling extremely close in the 7 swing states that could determine the election. Those states can be broken up into 3 groups. Donald Trump has generally held a narrow lead in the southeastern states, Georgia and North Carolina. He's also generally held small leads in the western states of Arizona and Nevada. But Kamala Harris can lose all of those states if she wins this final group, the so-called blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Harris has held small leads in Michigan and Wisconsin, but Pennsylvania remains a toss-up, leading many to believe it will be the most significant state of the cycle. It also holds the most electoral college votes of any swing state with 19. Several of these swing states have state laws that make them count ballots slower than others. The closer the election is, the longer it will take to decide, both because states will have to count ballots that might take a little longer, such as provisional or mail-in ballots. It will also open up the possibility of recounts and lawsuits. Reporting in Washington, I'm Brendan Cullerton.
Nearly 800,000 Kentuckians voted early in the 2024 election. Saturday was the last day of in-person, no-excuse early voting. For all 3 days, long lines were seen at polling places, especially in those bigger cities. In Lexington, lines stretched around buildings before the polls even opened.
And even at the last presidential election, it wasn't like this. It's amazing that this many people have come out to show their patriotism.
Around 656,000 early voters went to the polls on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. 136,000 others used different methods like mail-in ballots. Groups throughout Lexington are encouraging folks to get out and vote. Members of the League of Women Voters and the group Advocacy-Based Lived Experience want to improve voter turnout in Kentucky. They say the majority of registered voters never go to the polls. Advocates say they are working to educate people on how to vote and the importance of their voice.
The more that we feel connected to our communities, the less likely we are to create harm in our community, right? So it's that sense of belonging, that purpose that we have, that we go out and we share those things.
Now you need a photo ID to vote. That could be your driver's license, passport, or student ID. You can bring a note card into the voting booth. People with disabilities can bring someone to help or ask a poll worker for assistance. The polls will open at 6 a.m. tomorrow here in Kentucky. You can vote as long as you're in line at your polling location by 6 p.m. when the polls close. Your voting location is based on the voting precinct you live in. If you do not know where your voting location is, you can check online. Secretary of State Michael Adams urges people who are voting by mail to return their ballot to a secure drop box given to their county clerk.
The safest thing is to use the drop box. Number one, it's quicker because we get it immediately instead of having to wait for the mail to run. Number two, they're more secure.
All mail-in ballots have to be received by 6 p.m. tomorrow when the polls close. Otherwise, they will not be counted. Once again, the polls will be open tomorrow in much of Kentucky from 6 in the morning until 6 in the evening. Of course, it's an hour later out west. You can find election guides, polling locations, and sample ballots at govote.ky.gov. Coming up on First at 4, a certain kind of phone could be making a comeback. Got the details on this new trend.
And in the world of weather, unseasonably warm temperatures remain in the forecast. Overall, though, we'll see a dry election day, but we also have much needed rain chances in the forecast. Details in a few minutes.